Hey guys, this is Gigi with GoGo Glam. This is a complete tutorial on how to do a ribbon assembled garland. This is our preferred way of doing things in the shop. If you do have a decorator strip, I strongly encourage you to watch this video and check this out. Maybe consider doing a ribbon assembly. We find that it is easier on your hands for tying balloons, it's faster, and it is going to be a more sturdy build. You can actually take this with you if you need to transport it, if you're going from one location to the other, if you're going to be outdoors. This is the best way of doing it, and you don't have to have any experience. It's so simple. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. If you guys find yourself getting lost, or you have any questions, make sure you reach out or leave us a comment in the section below, and we can try to kind of figure out where you might be struggling. But I think anybody can do this. It's so simple and so quick. Step one is going to be to inflate all of your balloons and tie them off in pairs. So I am starting with my 11s. I'm color blocking today, so I am doing all of my mint together, and then I'll do all of my willow, all of my black, and all of my fog gray. So this is a good size if you're putting helium in here, but for a garland, it's way too big. It makes the latex a little more fragile, so it's more apt to pop, and they don't fit together really great. So I'm gonna let out some of the air. I'm gonna push these into my hip to go ahead and get them to be a little more round. So more like that. Then I'm just going to crisscross the necks, wrap one over. That just keeps air from escaping, so I can kind of do this. And then just tie it off in a knot like so. I'm also going to go through and pair my 17-inch balloons with an 11-inch balloon and pair those off. If you have some 17s and they don't have smaller counterparts, that's okay. Just inflate them and tie them off, and I will show you at the end how to add those in. So again, with my 17s, I don't want them to get too large, so I will let a little air out. I'm always kind of pushing in the bottom with my fist just to help round them out. The larger balloons, sometimes it's harder to tell like how big you can go. If they start getting really oblong shaped, they are too big. Let some air out, push the bottom, get them to be kind of round. You don't want to underinflate them so much that you lose out on the impact of the size, but you also don't want them to be popping for you because they are your staples. Now that we have all of our clusters taken care of, we are going to grab a piece of ribbon. I usually start with about, let's see, 4 like full arm lengths out to your shoulder. It's roughly 12 feet, probably a little more than 12 feet actually. I don't like to do it much longer than that because it has a tendency to tangle. And if I'm doing this for a client, I will use fishing line most often. But until you kind of get the hang of it, fishing line can have a tendency to pop your balloons because it is very sharp. So ribbon is always kind of a safe bet. So you're just gonna go ahead and take this. I'm gonna get my first color and just tie a basic knot. Just tie it in there. Like you're tying a knot in your tennis shoes, like so. So the pattern I am going to follow for this garland today is below on the screen. You can follow along. I'm starting with a cluster of 4, and now I'm going to add a 16-inch. So I'm going to go ahead and take my thumb, push it right into the neck area. That way I can press it down into the other set of balloons, because you do want these to be tight together. If you're out here, you're going to end up with these kind of loose spots. So go ahead and just push it down. And then I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm just going to do a figure 8. So 1, 2, like so. And I'm going to grab another cluster of 4 in Willow. Same thing, I'm just going to take my finger, I'm just going to grab the neck area, push it down. Don't pull too tight with the ribbon because ribbon can break if you're yanking on it too hard. Just wrap it once, twice. Sometimes with a set of 4, I'll give it 1 extra wrap. That way, in case a balloon pops, you don't have things start unraveling. Our next color is Empowerment, so I'm just going to do the same pattern. I'm going to do a set 4. When I'm doing is I kind of like to have all my 16s facing forward. Generally, I'm hanging it on something where you're not going to be walking around it. So you can always rearrange at the end, but I try to make it so they're at least kind of on the same side. So again, wrapping that in there like so. And then I'm just going to show you real quick, if I didn't have a set of 4, I can just take a set of 2. I can pop that right in there, wrap it once, come back with my other set of 2, crisscross it, wrap it once. Depending on how many balloons you have, depending on which garland size that you went with, or how many balloons that you've purchased, you might not have 4 and 4 and 4 and 4. So if you have 6 and 6, you can just make these little adjustments, and you can add sets of 2. They don't have to be sets of 4. That's why I say at the beginning, it's just the pattern that we're following is kind of in general. This just helps to make the 16s sort of spanned out evenly throughout the garland with a nice amount of 11s in between. All right, so I'm gonna add black and then fog gray, and then I'm going to repeat my pattern. So I am just going to keep going with the same technique. If at some point you run out of ribbon or string, you can actually just go ahead and tie a piece in. I'm getting kind of short here. I don't like to go much shorter than that, as it gets kind of tricky. So just honestly tie it together, a couple knots. And I want to tie it in a couple of knots just to make sure it doesn't slip out, especially if you're using fishing line. Fishing line is a little trickier. Fishing line, I don't generally tie it together. What I'll do is I will take the end of the piece of fishing line, wrap it back into the balloons, and then start a new piece and tie a new piece around like this set right here. I don't like to tie it to itself because it just, like I said, it tends to slip out very easily. So, okay. So now that I'm done, I'm going to back up the camera a little bit, and we're gonna go ahead and get this hung. Okay, so now we have this other garland hung up. We had a little problem with our camera with the other one, so I'm just gonna show you on this one how to hang it and how to add 5-inch balloons. We, in our shop, use command hooks. They work on most walls, but not everything. You just have to kind of see what's going to be best for you. You might have to just get a little creative with that. A picture nail will work just fine. We always suggest putting either the command hooks, or especially if you're going to use a nail, putting it a couple feet above where you plan on hanging it from. It gives you a little more flexibility to be able to like raise it up, drop it down. It just gives you, I kind of hang them up and out. So if you can see, this one is anchored, I'm not sure if I can get all the way over here, but it's anchored up here, and then it kind of swags across. So it just gives you a little more flexibility, just to sort of like arrange it and get it exactly where you want it. And then I usually put an anchor point about, it's a little over halfway, depends on the length of the garland, and you just kind of wrap a piece of ribbon or fishing line. Fishing line is what you'll have with your garland kit, and that's clear. That's the best way to do it. But since I'm just in the shop doing a sample, it really doesn't matter for me. So I'll just kind of, if I want this to come up, I can tighten it. If I want it to be lower or down here, then I would let some string out and then just make a little knot and hang it up. We're going to go ahead and add our 5-inch balloons in now using 260 twisters. So that's just these long skinny balloons. If you've bought a pro kit from us, your kit will have these with. Otherwise, you can get these in our store. These are fantastic for adding stuff to garlands. Because they're stretchy, they allow you to be able to move things around, and they're very easy to work with. So you'll just take this and snip it into thirds. That's all you're going to need for length. I've inflated all of my 5-inch balloons and I've tied them into thirds, like so. You don't have to do it that way. You can do pairs, or you can do sets of 4. So I've done pairs and then made clusters just like we did with the actual garland itself. You'll just have less clusters when you're doing it in 4s. You'll just use up your 5-inch balloons faster. So you could either grab some extra 5-inch balloons or just kind of be aware of that. But they both look good, and this is a little faster because you'll have less sets to tie in. So it just kind of depends on if it's a time thing or an aesthetic or whatever works for you guys. So you're just going to take 1/3 of that piece of 260 twister. You're just literally going to take it and tie it. So just wrap it around the middle of the cluster, tie it like 1 time, like so. And then you're just going to find the spot that you want to put it. You can just take this actually and tie it right around the anchor ribbon. You can also tie it to another one of the tails in here, so it just depends on which is the most accessible. I'm tying it around the ribbon string right now because it's just easier, like that. And so the beauty of this, one, I can move this whole thing around and I don't have to worry. I can shuffle things back. If you have to transport this, this works really well. But I can move this, you know, I can even move it to the other side if I wanted to. So I can kind of, within, you know, this length, I can kind of move this around and just get it exactly kind of where I want it, how I want it to look. So I'm just going to keep adding the different sets and then show you how this finishes up. So you can see I'm kind of, as I'm moving stuff around, this makes this really nice because I can change the position of that as I move these, pull things towards the front. When you pull your 17s forward, they're going to look so much bigger. They're going to have kind of a more of an impact. So I always like to try to kind of have them coming forward. If you pop them down, you can also use them to fill in some gaps, but this is going to really kind of make them stand out a little more. So as much as possible, because like I have this one back here, it looks tiny, and then I'm just going to pull it over that way, bring this around, bring that up, like so. Here's the final look, just so you guys can see how it is with all the 5-inch balloons added. We added a couple of Mylar in here. You can see how this comes together really nice. It's very nice and full. This is a 10 to 12 foot garland. The last one was 14 to 16, I think, that we started with. So that one just had a little more length around the bottom. But again, it just kind of depends on how you're going to drape it, how you're going to hang it. I always like to have at least 10 to 12 feet to work with because this, like you can see, gives you a lot of length to kind of play with. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you do have any questions, please reach out to us at gogoglamco.com.